Greetings, everyone, and we are indeed rolling tape. I wanted to do now. Let me say this: I looked over the second video that I had done on this subject matter, and I've decided to redo that video and condense that video with what was going to be the third video. And rather than have three different videos on this subject matter, it will only be two. So I'm taking the second video that was already released, but I'm gonna redo that information, combine it with what was gonna be the third disc program on this third part, and make two parts, because again, I'm trying to work on this length and this time. Now let's jump right into this. The first video, simply I was addressing Mrs. Owens' initial claim. Again, I went 4 minutes into the video and started there. The last 2 minutes and 2 minutes and 51 seconds is what I've been addressing here. Just the last 2 minutes and 51 seconds of the video. The first video, again, basically dealt with, that opening claim that she made. Police brutality is not an issue. Go back and look at that video. I was looking at some of the numbers that she mentioned, and I was just sharing how, in 2015 alone, there was a total of 76 unarmed black men that were killed. Now, 36 is listed as those killed by way of being shot. But again, that number is not the total number, as we discovered. And you can go, it's an article, a link on that first video, that you can click on, and it will show you why that number 36, as far as being unarmed black men killed in 2015, that's not the full number. That number actually was 76 when you factor in those blacks who also died unarmed, no weapons on them, but died from chokeholds, died from being over-tased, died from police dogs, died from just being beat to death. That number in 2015 shot from 36 all the way up to 76. And you can factor that in for each year following. In 2016, as she pointed out, there were 16 deaths by way of gunshot. But that still can't be the total number, because, again, there are deaths that occurred, like one instance where a man ended up in custody and ended up dead from a broken neck after he had been taken into custody. How do you break your neck after you've been taken into custody? Well, we know. But so that death wouldn't be included in the deaths of those who died unarmed and shot. Just those who are shot. So in 2016, 16, but again, that's not the total number. 2017, it was 19 unarmed black men that died, but that's not the total number. In 2018, we're at 13, but that's not, I'm sure, the total number. So to suggest, when you look at all those lives, and that she's so cavalierly or so nonchalantly, oh, it's just 16 in 2015, in 2016, just 16 unarmed black men were killed by police. And as I pointed out, and when you look at all those years from 2015 up to 2000 to present, and you can even go back further than that, because it appears that the numbers went higher as I was going back, and that could be in relation to the fact that a lot of this now is coming out because of smartphones, and people are being able to see now clearly a problem that folks been there since since policing began, and black folks were set free. So we have a problem here, and so this idea from Miss Owens that there's not a problem, as I stated before, go tell that to all those children that will never see their father again over these years of these men that died, no weapons, unarmed. Now, they could have been a threat in some other way. We talked about that. They could be big men or whatever. But there are procedures for taking someone into custody that has no weapons. They are weapons free. There is no threat of actual weapons by these individuals. And as I pointed out, you can't shoot them in the knee or shoulder. You just have to aim center mass. And folks, it's just unexcusable when you hear many of these cases where these individuals got multiple bullets in them, 5 and 6 bullets, some in the back. We see the videos. Some of these men are actually running away. Since when is running away a threat? Yes, that's breaking the law. Catch them. They're not going to outrun the radio. They're not going to outrun the police. And if they do, again, we have a problem. We have a problem. And the idea that she's making the claim that we don't and scoffing at Colin Kaepernick is just absolutely ludicrous. And as I stated before, and the more I look at this video, the more I'm convinced she is a puppet for someone. She's the black face and the black voice, the powers that be, that want to try to present this narrative, this false narrative, that there is not a problem in the black community with police brutality, and it's just absolutely absurd. We are 6 minutes in. That's enough on that. Let's move on now and look at and begin this this phase of this. Now let's listen to Miss Owens as we continue.
Interestingly enough, in New York City, black men make up more than 75% of all shootings, and yet only represent 23% of the population.
Okay, now she is still building this case, and the whole effort is, again, now it's sort of, she made the claim, and I addressed this in the first video. There is no police problem, and then she's beginning to compare 16 black men death in 2016, 16 unarmed black men in comparison to 147 cops. Well, that was a misleading comparison, folks, and I think that comparison just shows you the nature of her how she works. That was completely skewed and misleading. The 147 cops, as I stated in the first video, that she's comparing to the 16 unarmed black men that's not a accurate comparison, in the sense that the 147, first of all, that's not an accurate number anyway for 2016. But that number included all forms of death by police. The way she presented and strung that together, it would lead you to believe, as I pointed out, it misled a friend of mine who watched the same video and swore she had claimed that black men had killed 147 cops. She didn't actually say that, but the way she strung her words together, again, that's a misleading conclusion that you can gain from listening to her. And I think those misleading conclusions are done intentionally. That the 147, again, that wasn't an accurate number, but that included types of death from police officers that were hit doing traffic stops or something, or hit by some motorists not paying attention, car accidents that the officer was actually in himself, accidents I mentioned where two officers got killed by other officers through some freak mistake or something that happened. And so to compare our plight and the number of deaths with the officers' deaths, as if she's saying they lose way more than we ever do. And it's unfortunate that anybody gets killed, and we're not happy at all about officers being killed. But that's not an accurate comparison given the subject matter and what we're addressing here. That's not an accurate comparison, and it's a misleading comparison. And then also, and it's unfortunate, and I don't say this lightly, but when you put on that uniform, you know that there is a possibility that you could lose your life. And that's why we honor police, and we're not trying to disrespect police. But at the same time, when we see these instances where individuals, citizens, particularly black, are mistreated and not treated in the proper way that they should be, and even killed, then we speak out against that and we say something about that. And so these black men that were killed unarmed, the uniform carries a certain threat to it. But my color shouldn't carry a threat, because I'm more likely to be killed because I'm black. But folks, that's what many of the statistics are showing. And we're gonna look at some more articles and some links associated with studies. One particular one by Boston University that's gonna show that I shouldn't be in danger of a cop. Yes, there's a danger of losing your life just by virtue of the uniform. I'm sorry that that's the way that is, but it is. Even a military soldier, when you put on the uniform, I'm a veteran. When we put that uniform on and raised our hand, we knew if we went into combat, we could lose our lives, but we understood that. I shouldn't have that same threat. I shouldn't be even close to a threat of losing my life just because of the color of my skin. And yet, statistics are showing that this is a case regarding black people. Study after study, folks. So that's how this woman can sit here and say that's not a problem. As I stated before, tell that to the young girl or the young boy whose father is in that number of those wrongly shot down and killed, posed no threat, had no weapons. Tell that to that child that's never going to see their father again. Or if it is a female, that child is never going to see their mother again. And to take this such, just cavalier, uncaring position as I'm hearing, as she's describing this, I just find that extremely troubling and disturbing, especially when she continues to present this notion like she's the real free thinker here. She's the one that's progressive in her, and we're behind and trapped in some, it's just ridiculous to listen. How are you going to bring truth when you won't even admit what report after report after report after study is revealing? Well, that's foolishness to me. And so here she's bringing this issue of these other statistics of the crime, and we're going to see she's building this case towards, okay, if there's a reason for black people to have all these negative encounters and bad experiences with police, she's going to try to allude to the idea that it's because they commit so much crime. But we're going to look at a report that's going to refute that. Let's listen to some more of what she has to say.
And so the question remains, why are black people disproportionately committing crimes in this country?
Okay, why are black people disproportionately? Now that's a direct, supposedly a counter to the question of why are black people disproportionately dying in police custody or in confrontation with police. So that's supposed to be a direct counter to that concern, and that's the major concern that Colin Kaepernick has been standing on from the very beginning. He's been consistent in his position that his position is he is concerned about police brutality, the injustices that black folks experience, even in the justice system, sentencing that is not fair. And I guess she'll suggest that doesn't happen when there are articles and statistics that show it's the case. But I guess in her world, I don't know what her world is, because it seems somewhat really delusional. But she's asking this question: why does black people seem to commit in such disproportionate numbers crime? Well, I'm going to answer that as we progress. It may be a little bit premature right now. I'm going to let some more of her comments play. But I'm going to answer that. But we're going to see what her conclusion is as well. But let's play some more.
We represent 15% of the population in the largest counties, and yet we make up 57% of the murders in them.
Okay, she's following these particular stats with what she just said, because she's trying to send this notion again that black folks just commit crime. We just I guess we're prone to committing crime. And then we're gonna see what again is what she feels is the driving force behind that.
45% of all assaults. If you were anything like Colin Kaepernick, you would say that those facts are racist.
Now, let me say this. Okay, she's scoffing. She made a claim. Why is black people committing all this crime? She throws some more statistics out there to show that we just crime riddled in our communities and so forth. And there is, she gave some stats, some numbers. I don't know how accurate they were about New York earlier. I did some research. Yes, black folks, the black community is leading there in murders and certain other violent crimes. But she does bring to a point this question, why? And we need to understand that. And we're gonna see what she feels. Now, she just scoffed at Colin Kaepernick because she just said, well, he'll probably say it's racism. But folks, excuse me, when I bring up this recent study by Boston University, we're gonna find out there is a racist bottom to all of this. It's racism, and we're gonna see. Now, she's gonna claim that it's not. She's gonna bring this to another from another direction. And again, but at the bottom of this, now let me say this. Okay, we're talking about why black folks commit so much crime. Racism. No, I'm not necessarily saying that. There are some factors that produce the violent crime. But what I am saying is when you trace back to the factors that produce it and then go further back, you're going to find, as I stated, there's a racist bottom to this. And I'll tie all that together as this progresses.
Come up with no solutions or answers. But if you were smarter than him, then you would induce that there is a direct correlation between crime rates and poverty.
Now, let me say this. And for those that heard that first video, one of the reasons I wanted to do this second one and condense it with the material I had for the third, well, this video here is going to be the second and the third combined. But I wanted to do it because I wanted to make sure I was clear. I agree with her on this. I do believe that poverty, and let me state it correctly this time, fully correctly this time. I do believe that poverty can contribute to lawless behavior, because of the conditions that areas. I'm not saying that just because a person is poor, they're going to end up being a criminal. I'm just saying that in communities where poverty is high, you find this, and you find it whether you're talking about the United States or you're talking about any part of the world, where you have areas that are full of, just inundated with poverty and harsh conditions such as that. You tend to see crime increase and other criminal behavior, drug sales and so forth, drug use, because a lot of people want to escape the hardships that they're facing. So you see these types of things unfold. So on this, where she's going to try to say it's a poverty issue, well, I believe it is a poverty issue, but what she stopped short of saying, well, where does the poverty issue even come from? It's not just it's poverty and that's the bottom of it. That's the bottom. It's poverty, so let's go from there. No, sweetheart, to her and anyone else, there are issues that even create the poverty circumstances, and we're gonna see that in these links. I'm gonna provide again 2 links below. I get this confused. In YouTube is down below, and Facebook is up above, but the point is, I'm going to have 2 links on here that is going to address what she's trying to suggest is the sole and only problem, but it's far deeper than that. See, she comes short of actually going to the actual, going deeper towards the root, if not actually being the root. And we're going to discover racism is at the bottom or towards the very bottom of what's happening in the black community. And I'm going to show that, and statistics and research shows that. And why she doesn't get it is because, again, she's a puppet for other entities and groups that are trying to send and cause and think that the Jedi mind trick actually works outside of the movies. That if I say this foolishness enough, I can get you to buy into it.
How does the black community solve poverty? Is the answer A, kneeling during the national anthem?
Well, first of all, see, and again, this is misdirection in a sense, because now she's dismissed Colin Kaepernick's focus, said there is no problem with police brutality. The real problem is poverty. And so Colin Kaepernick is completely off in his approach. And so now she's scoffing again. Do you fix poverty with kneeling? And obviously she's been, sarcastic, condescending, however you want to look at it. But the reality is she's the one that is off base. And all of this, again, all of this argument is presented in a way, is deceptive, presented in a way that does not reflect the actual reality of what's going on. And she's just depending on people to be foolish enough and blind enough to just, the young lady is articulate. She is. But her facts and what she's presenting is skewed, is warped, and it's deceptive. And so she's sitting here saying that the bottom line issue of the black problem is poverty. Well, I would agree. As I stated, we do have a poverty problem, but there are factors that even leads to the poverty conditions that she completely omits. And folks, when we begin to address why are so many communities around the country are poverty stricken, and you cannot answer fully and properly that question without acknowledging and recognizing that there is a race problem, to where we have been and we're going to look at it. The Boston University study, please read that study. When I put this link on this particular video, it's going to be a link to a Boston University study, and I mean, they lay it out in very clear terms of this, what they call structural racism, that is at the heart of the beatings, at the heart of the shootings, the killings of the police towards black men as well as women. But it's also, if you look into that study, you will discover, because there's one claim that was made of how they said one of the major contributing factors to these killings of unarmed black men is it had to do with and again, you'd have to read the story because I can't articulate it obviously the way it's written out. But basically what I drew from it is these communities that are basically white and very few people of color live in them. The study finds that these are the areas where blacks are more likely to be killed, and being completely unarmed and end up being killed. And they attribute that to a type of racism, and as they pointed out, and how this segregation of these communities that are predominantly white, if not all white, they are arguing that these are the areas where black people are most likely to be killed when they're stopped, killed even when they are unarmed, and it goes on to talk about how black people have been through this structural racism. We've been sort of herded into some of the more poor areas of society. And again, when you look at all of the other factors that we've had to contend with. Now, she mentions about the abortion issue. It is a big issue in the black community. But a lot of that has been by design. I mean, go study the eugenics movement and Margaret Sanger. Some of that has been specifically by design. The syphilis, or rather the Tuskegee experiments with syphilis targeting the black community. There are reports out where other ways that the black community has been targeted. We could talk about the school to prison pipeline. That's a case that we just won here in Mobile about 4 years ago. It was proven, folks, in a court of law that black students were not being treated equally in terms of when instances occur that needed to be dealt with in a punitive way, that they were getting more harsher penalties such as expulsion or suspension, when their white counterparts might just get a warning. That was proven in a court of law. They called that school to prison pipeline because what was happening, these kids get out on the street through suspension, expulsion, they get into trouble, they get into the system, now they're in jail, they got this cycle going, and their lives are ruined. That was proven in a court of law, folks. This is the kind of stuff that we as a black community, we still experience in this country. And there are many other things. The industrial prison complex. There are articles and studies that show that we are disproportionately sentenced more harshly and put into this and prisons that have been privatized, and now is money put in people's pockets to have inmates. And a lot of that has fallen heavily on the black race. So to make some sort of case that we don't have a problem, and where does the poverty come from? A large portion of it comes from the way, as black Americans, we have been treated in this country. And there's report after report after report that substantiates that, and how this woman can scoff. And when yeah, Colin Kaepernick may conclude that all of these negative figures, a lot of it has to do with racism, and you're going to say it's not and laugh and call his movement, she's going to say it ultimately here, garbage. But no, her research and information is garbage. Because how can you be so blind as to miss all of these clear reports and studies that have been done in terms of how African Americans have been treated? Of course, we have challenges. Of course, we live in areas. It's been shown how disproportionately we are sent to prison for sentencing that white counterparts will get probation for. That happens over and over and over. A person goes to prison, they got a felony now, where a white counterpart did the exact same thing, and they get probation or get some other lighter sentence. Well, this felony person, now they got to go out and try to find a job, and they can't work. And so this is a cycle that has a history in this country, and it creates these types of situations of environment and crime. A lot of the anger that black folks harbor, we're going to look at that too in studies of the mental state and how black communities are affected by these killings that happen in their communities. They affect us deeply. I'm going to have another link that is associated. This was found on the public television, PBS website. It's an article that I'm going to have a link that's going to speak directly to the mental health of the black community as we go through these challenging and trying situations. And I said this in the original part 2 video. Again, this I'm condensing. This will be part 2 and 3. And you know, it's interesting how when you talk about looking back at the past, and you have these voices, and she's one. Oh, we ought to get over the past, and well, we can't get a full story of the black experience and where we are now without looking back at the past and dealing with certain situations and being truthful about them. And if you think that, it's amazing how we can't see this principle when black folks use it, but in the field of psychiatry is used every day somewhere in the world. That's what a psychiatrist does. When a person comes and buys time with a psychiatrist, one of the first things a psychiatrist does is begin to ask questions about that person's past, because that in that field, it's understood that you are, in essence, where you are right now is representative of where you've come from. So if you got deep wounds and hurts today, somewhere in your past, that's where it took place. And to answer this, while we're on it, I've heard this argument, well, you're not a slave and I'm not a slave owner. Well, I may not be a slave, and I may not have ever met a white person that's a slave owner. But I see the racism that produced that evil system of chattel slavery every day. The same evil system of racism that put that demonic system in place in the first place is still in this country. Report after report after report after study proves this. This young black man is dead today. This is just another of many cases. This young black man dead, and a cop is going to say, I walked into the wrong apartment. That's just absolutely ludicrous. And that a department is actually buying that, and the judicial system there is trying her with manslaughter. Like this was a mistake. It's like all of the professionals It's like everybody in the country, except those who should be trained in investigation and looking through bull crap and seeing the evidence for what it is, should know that there's no way, I don't care how a person worked, or what shift they worked, or how long they worked, to sit here and try to pass off on reasonably intelligent I mean, it's almost insulting to think that people would, that there are forces that would try to inflict us with such nonsense, that somehow makes sense. I walked into the wrong apartment. Like, I don't see that I'm in the wrong apartment the moment I walk past the threshold of the front door. That's just ludicrous. But this is the type of thing that we constantly endure as black folks. And to say there's not a problem, that's just insulting. And you're looking at the face of some paid or some propped up pawn, puppet, because there's no way in the world you could be that blind to what's actually going on in our country. And yet she continues to make this argument. Let's continue.
Is the answer B, doing everything that Jay-Z and Beyonce say we should do? Is the answer C, protesting and rioting? Or is the answer D, none of the above? Colin's protest is garbage. It's a distraction from the conversations that we should be having as a community.
That we should be having. No, her foolishness is a distraction. And it's from the conversations that we should be having, because you're not going to solve the poverty problem. She talks about poverty. You're not going to solve the poverty problem until you go beyond just the poverty problem and get to the root. What has created these environments throughout our country? Why is this tending to fall so heavily on the black community? Well, again, many of the things that I just spoke about is the reason. I'm going to play a clip just before we close, because we're almost about to wrap this. But I'm going to play a clip, and it's going to give an indication. It's from Dr. Martin Luther King. It's going to give an indication of what we have faced as a black community, why we still have these problems. Yes, black folks, and I'll say it now, we need to do more. We need to come together. We need to stop, bickering and fighting against one another. But how can two walk together unless they agree? When you spewing nonsense like this, no, you can't stand in agreement with someone like she doesn't even accept the actual reality of what's going on. But we need to address Chicago and the deaths there. We need to address the abortion issue and eugenics that started and wanting to exterminate the black community and the black race. We need to address these problems of high crime. But there's a wound in the black community. There's an anger even there because of the treatment that we perpetually and we continually get. And the article that I'm going to put here that I mentioned earlier about mental health, please read that article, because it talks about how when you see, it says there's little or no effect when the deaths are justified. When you see a black man shooting at a cop and he gets killed, they did the study and said there's no real change in mental health. But they did a study to show, but when you see these instances like Philando Castile, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, or we see some of these other instances, this young man running, yes, he shouldn't have ran, but running shouldn't mean 5 bullets in your back, or however many bullets they shot him down with. It shouldn't mean that. And so when you see these types of images, this report says it deeply, it affects our psyche. It affects, and it does breed an anger. It does breed a discontentment. And it does breed a lashing out. And until you are willing to honestly discuss the issues, not this foolishness trying to say, well, we just a bunch of criminals, and if we having any problems with the police, it's because we have so many run-ins. But in the study with Boston University, they're going to show it has nothing to do. It has nothing in the larger sense to do with the number of instances a person is arrested or have encounters. It has to do with structural racism that still exists in this country. Read those links that I'm going to put on here, but let's let her finish, and I'm going to play this clip by Dr. King that's going to explain what we've gone through as a black community, what we're yet going through, and until we're willing to address these issues on that level, we're gonna still be in bad shape. So I hope our community, our black community, will come together, our white brothers and sisters who see this thing for what it really is, so that we can join it together, heal these issues, and move forward as a American people together. But let me let her finish.
It's similar to having a black president in office for 8 years and seeing absolutely no change or progress. But ignore me, I'm acting white. Intelligence makes me an Uncle Tom, like Larry Elder or Thomas Sowell. In fact, let's keep encouraging black people to boycott and get arrested and sever any and all professional aspects that they may have, all in the name of real blackness. Look, if you're Colin Kaepernick, Jay-Z, or the #1 black extortionist Al Sharpton, I want you to know that black people are waking up. It's only a matter of time until we all figure every single one of these things out. I know I certainly have, and I have no intentions of shutting up. Thank you guys so much for watching.
It would help if she would shut up long enough to get her facts right. But let me play this.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps.
It's happening today, just like that.
And this is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we're coming to get our check.
Folks, that's it. And it's still happening today. And so, let's be in prayer. Pray for Miss Owens. I think she needs prayer. I really do. I hope I wasn't just too negative and nasty, but I believe, again, she's a puppet for someone, because you can't be that blind and yet claim you got so much enlightenment and truth. It's just ridiculous. God bless you.